If you're a student in the field of STEM, looking to pursue a career in this field, or for that matter, even a working professional in the STEM field, this podcast is going to be especially relevant for you. In this session, we're going to cover a lot of practical tips and we're going to be interacting with a senior business leader. Welcome to the Zista Podcast, where we invite senior academicians and industry personnel to answer questions that students have within a particular area. Today's area is rather interesting. There are so many people who are interested in STEM, so many people who are working in the STEM domain. So how do you really succeed? Are there any practical tips that can help you to forge ahead in your life and your career? In this episode, we're going to be interacting with Gaurav Sri Krishna. He's the Chief Talent Transformation Officer for the BTG Group at TCS. He has over 34 years of experience, and may I say it's cross-functional experience across strategy, business development, relationship management, marketing, and operations across a host of verticals like IT, retail, financial services, and consumer goods. Let's go straight into the session. Good morning, Mr. Sri Krishna. Thank you for making time and joining us on this podcast.
Good morning, Amit. It's always a pleasure to be with you and your team.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this session. We're trying to discuss, practical tips for students of STEM. So undoubtedly, domain knowledge is really important. In the STEM domain, students can explore so many careers. They can look at engineering, math, medicine, even data and AI. But the key point is, what can students do to succeed as a student of STEM or, for that matter, a STEM professional?
Right. So when you talk of STEM, once the minute somebody uses the word STEM, the perception or the mind veers only towards computer science. Now, because of the Chandrayaan project, everybody is talking about space and aviation and space technology.
Sure.
Or they think of artificial intelligence. But they don't realize that STEM is not confined to just those areas, right? As I always keep saying, a farmer in his farm can be helped because of STEM. You perhaps might use a robot or a drone from a technology perspective in agriculture, or you could even craft a new variety or a new cultivar of a plant, right? You could even contribute there.
Right.
And that doesn't stop you from looking into microscope, because today they think that everything is done by technology. So the good old ways of doing things, the traditional ways, are still there. And all youngsters who are preparing themselves in STEM, so they should first clear their head out by saying that it's science, technology, engineering, and math. And math is always there everywhere in life.
Sure.
It's in your personal life or professional life. There's a little bit of math everywhere. But I think what they should start thinking of is, I know it's difficult for students to say what they're really passionate about. Sometimes at the 10th standard, people are troubled. Once they go to +2, they're troubled. And then even some of them will get into college. So if they take up an engineering degree or they take up a BSc degree in any of the sciences, they're still not very sure mentally, right? But today, given that they've got the exposure, there is so much of social media and technology is driving awareness for everybody. So in so many forms, maybe 30 years ago, or when I was a student, perhaps there is not much other than libraries and other than the exhibits that teachers used to bring into the class.
Sure.
And that used to come only when there was an inspection in school, right? It used to never happen on a regular basis. There were no teaching aids for us in many ways. Today, the screen is there. They've got digital teaching aids. All these students, teachers make presentations. There are videos that are shown. So they are aware, and I think they can build passion. So in terms of STEM, building a career in STEM, as I keep reiterating, it's not just computer science. It's not just artificial intelligence. It's not really the high tech. Sure, if somebody is interested, he's got a mindset, he's focused in computer science, he's passionate about it, he can go there. But there are so many other fields, say maybe as I keep going back to agriculture, or it could be food sciences, it could be, even using science to build or create eco-friendly fabrics that we're looking at, right? Uh, so then how do you start looking at natural dyes which are available in the environment? So if people start looking at that, can they start looking at first conserving the environment, ensuring that, these things are easily available and we're not destroying them? So there's so many aspects. So the environment, it's not just technology, as I said, right? So I think for youngsters today, what they should do is they should look around and see where the society is moving, where there is a need for STEM to intervene and really make life easy. And today, I think it's all sustainability, right? It's so true. Sustainability is hitting, is the need of the hour, because we've seen our global warming create so much of a mess for us. All of us have got funny weather conditions in this year. Using STEM, you invent a machine which aids any activity anywhere, but you should ensure that if that machine is more user friendly, it's more eco-friendly, or it's renewable sources of power are used for building that machine, right? So it could be solar powered, or it could be rechargeable batteries which are earth friendly, human friendly, things like this. So I think a lot of thought finally would go into sustainability and responsibility for all of us, which is the key. So I feel that today, if anybody is thinking about STEM, a career in STEM, and wants to move ahead, he should keep sustainability in mind, which is primary for all of us, because we want the future generations also to enjoy, the piece of earth that we live on. So the idea is there. So look at sustainability, focus there, and see what you love to do. And don't think, as I repeatedly keep saying, that STEM means you're only a computer scientist, or you're inventing machines, or you're working on drones. It just doesn't mean that. It's even simple things are all part of STEM, and you can contribute a lot more.
I like the advice you've shared. If I can recap, you're really telling students to focus on or identify what they're truly passionate about.
Yeah.
And don't look at STEM as just a series of subject areas, but rather as a mindset. And take that mindset, apply that mindset to something that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
The generation today, I've seen that they're really conscious and aware of, things like environmental impact, green technologies, sustainability, because they can see the world changing around them, and sometimes they don't like what they see. They don't want to inherit a planet which is plagued with problems. So rather than being part of the problem, they really want to be part of the solution. And I think in a STEM education, if channelized in a specific area, can really yield good results. Another thing that you mentioned is that don't really gravitate towards the tried and tested career paths. Really keep your mind open and try to explore different career options which are in sync with your interest. Because if you do, then it's something that you will enjoy, right?
Absolutely. Right. Very well summarized, Amit, as always.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, this is something which is a little bit on the softer side, but I think it's really important and essential for us to cover. In terms of life skills, or perhaps a mindset that can help students thrive in a changing world. The world is changing so rapidly. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Life skill, that's really very, very important. Especially given the current environment all youngsters are growing in. So one is, earlier we were large families, joint families, and the value system was different. And then, over the years, even you and I are part of nuclear families. But more than nuclear families, and then there is always this earlier school of thought where the parents would decide a career, push something down. We have seen a lot of good and a lot of negative incidents that have happened in the recent past. So somebody is really forced to take on, because he's brilliant enough to move into IIT or into one of the premier institutions. We've seen a lot of suicides, a lot of things happening for some youngsters. So the first thing is, I think, for the young people who are pursuing STEM today is to, uh, one is to try their best to have engaging conversations first with their family, parents, right? Also, teachers and professors in schools and colleges, trying to ensure that they don't force things onto people, right? For their own sake, they see their selfish. There have been many stories that we've heard where the parents were not able to get into engineering or not pursue a career in aerospace, so they want their son or their daughter or their
Projecting their desire.
projecting their desire. So that has happened, and there are some ways by which at least children can go back, have a meaningful conversation with their parents and discuss this, or with their teachers in school, because there are many people. So like I have a neighbor here who says the daughter has already done her MBBS medicine, and she's deciding her MD specialization, right? Whereas the person who's done her medicine, the 4 years of medicine, she's decided on a line which she's very happy with. But the mother thinks that line is perhaps does not fetch you that much money, or is going to be too tiring, right? So killing somebody's passion doing that. So what is going to happen to a lot of youngsters is they fall into this trap, psychological thing, and they start rebelling, right? And their good interest or their capabilities in terms of what they are pursuing in the STEM or through the STEM in STEM would slowly start. I think it'll be falling apart for them. That is one. So they need to be very careful. And I think it's not just them, but the parents, the teachers, the education system, that ecosystem also should be very careful of this and should also provide them the right kind of advice. That is one. The second thing is, for a lot of them, is this value system. And what I'm trying to say is that social media pressure is there. Pressure from the social media is very much there. And they also think that, I will start something by 20, and by 25, I will set up something, make my money. And then, by 30, I'm just going to have fun. I'm going to have a party. So in pursuit of that, it's sometimes perhaps, like they say, missing the wood for the trees, or whatever you say that. So they I think, make that mistake. They get over ambitious, not realizing that life is as long. So even today, me at my age, as I keep telling you, I keep learning on a daily basis, right? There's a lot to learn, there's a lot to enjoy, and there's a lot to let go also, if you've really not got. So this sense should come into them, otherwise they're getting into a lot of psychological pressure. And secondly, in this era of the digital, we are all part of the digital workforce, and a digital era where we are all working, whether we're working for a corporate or a research institution or a space agency or for the government or any agency, the ways of working have changed, and career paths have all, earlier it was very, very simple and straightforward and traditional. You would start as a junior executive or a management trainee and slowly grow up to become, if you have the ambition, you want to become the chairman of the company. This is in the corporate world. Maybe a junior research scientist to the chief director of the research institute or things like that. These career paths sometimes are... So earlier, there was a steady traditional path, and there was also, based on your age and experience, you were able to move up, right? But today you have a 24-year-old who's maybe leading a team which has 60-year-old, or 50-year-old under him for some reason, because of his brilliance from the institute or whatever. So these things are happening. They're getting confused, and so I would say a lot of them get into a role, get into a job, and they start getting dissatisfied with what they're doing. And they're trying to say that they want to do something new every day, or they want to do something more. So this is another thing that they need to be very careful of. Either it's not, think at the college and school level, a lot of counseling and guidance is required for them. I see it happening to a lot of people who are in their 30s today, who are part of STEM perhaps. They've done their engineering and they're working in corporates and even my own organization. And they're not very happy, they're not satisfied. They're saying what we're doing is mundane, but they don't realize what they're doing is not mundane. But for them, it's classified because of this whole hype, which I told you is built around. Some of it is good. Social media's impact is good. Some of the impact social media makes is quite negative. So this is where I think they need to calibrate. Somebody needs to advise them, somebody needs to counsel them and tell them there is room for everybody and there is room to grow. Slow and steady is what I still feel. Um, like there are these overnight successes, like some you read in the newspapers, 2 crore salary for somebody who passed out, 20-year-old guy from IIT. So it's a dollar salary which gets converted. But then, then somebody else wants a 2 crore salary. He's trying to fight. He's trying to do something in a different way. He's got that ambition. He can reach the 2 crores, but it may not just happen to him like it happened to the guy who got recruited by, a European or American company in an Indian campus. So they should also look at these aspects in life, reality of life. Also somebody should help them and keep at every stage, they look back, they reevaluate what they're doing. And also they may get disappointed because many of them feel that after this, there is nothing much to do. Like if somebody is chosen digital marketing and the word of the part of that, they would say, yeah, I'm just doing the mundane stuff. I have nothing more new to do. So even in digital marketing, maybe it's the same campaign, maybe it's the same podcast, it's same conversation. But then there are so many other ways to think of newer things, to contact, maybe you're marketing a consumer product, go meet the consumer, get more ideas, get your consumer to, join a podcast like you are doing, right? So people can start innovating, start doing things differently, which will really invigorate you and make you feel happy. So people think they're getting into the rut. So this is happening to a lot of them. And the psychological impact is not just on them. It will be either, if they're married, it's fine for their family. If they're not married, then it's on their relationships. So some of them don't build relationships, so they break relationships. So it's getting societal. So I'm saying this kind of an environment that we're living in today, in the hardcore digital and AI world, they need to take cognizance of these softer parts. And of course, the other basics are communication, articulation, and I would say meditation today. Communication, articulation, meditation. You need to be at peace. They need to learn to be at peace. It happens to us because we have this. And yeah, I'm also part of learning in talent transformation, right? So people want courses in 5 minutes, 4-minute snippets, which is fine. You can cater. But then they need to realize that everything doesn't come in snippets, because I'm also realizing that I'm reading up so many small bits. I'm tending to forget. So slow and steady, meditate, sit back, relax, think what you've done for the day, what you can do. If this fear of missing out should not be there. FOMO is so prevalent for all these youngsters and for all of us. Why it is youngsters, for all of us. So I think articulation, communication, and then meditation is something that they need to get into.
I really like listening to you, and I think there's so many points that I picked up. But something that stayed with me is that, it's really important to be grounded.
Yeah.
It's really important to manage expectations. Right. So it could be expectations that we have, in terms of how our life should pan out. What you talked about, keeping it real. Don't have unrealistic expectations that at a really short age, you're going to,
right,
maybe scale a big height in terms of the corporate ladder, right, or, take home a really big pay package. Maybe it's possible, but maybe it's not. So learn to manage your own expectations, manage expectations of the peers that we may be, talking to, and also our parents, in terms of allowing us and helping us to pursue what we really want. And that thing about articulation, communication, and meditation, I really like that, because it really allows you to stay grounded. I've been doing podcasts with people from different industries. And one thing which is really interesting is that so many people harp on this aspect that it's really important to communicate properly. Right? Because no matter what field, no matter what endeavor you might be involved in, the way you articulate, the way you speak and communicate can really determine how far you can go, whether people can really work well with you. And I think it's a really essential life skill.
True.
When we sat down and we thought of doing this podcast with you, sir, what we were thinking is, students already have a lot of content out there in terms of what they should do to succeed from, academic point of view or things like that. But some of these life skills, these soft skills, the mindset, the broader picture that you're talking about is what we wanted to highlight. and I want to thank you for touching upon, these topics. It's a good tip there. Absolutely. It brings me to a important question, not so the last question that I had. In terms of mentorship, I'm sure in your professional journey, you would have, had a chance to work with a mentor. You would have had a chance to be a mentor. So my question is, what role does a mentor play in the success of STEM professionals or even students on a broader perspective?
Uh, that's a valid question, and I think having a mentor is always very useful. So there are two ways of mentorship. I would say.
Sure.
So for me, I'll be very honest with you. Maybe a sportsman like Tony. There's so many other public figures who are my silent mentors.
Okay.
Me talking about me, Gaurav Sri Krishna, on a podcast with you.
Sure.
30 years of work experience, all that is fine, but doesn't mean I have a crown on my head, right? I have learned a lot from them. I Perhaps you can learn a lot from maybe an Afghanistan cricket team player or a Bangladesh. So in a way, there are all these mentors who are not there for you. You don't have a communication with them. It's not a formal process. So that is one way. I mean, you look at these people who are role models. To say a role model is also a mentor. So that's one way of looking at it. The formal way is mentors. Is you can now people would say this mentor mentee is only when you go to an organization.
Mhm.
There's no need. You could perhaps look at an uncle or a grandfather in the family, or a relative, or a neighbor, or a friend, right? If that person, because a lot of ways you can see what that person has done, what he's achieved, or achievements. Again, I'm not talking about vice president, president, CEO. It's not just the corporate ladder, or it's not your professional achievement. But if somebody is good, or somebody's got good views, good natured, and you think that he's fit enough to be a mentor, you could go and approach that person and say that I would like to discuss this with you. Right. So it happens, it could happen at home, in the family, it could happen in your neighborhood, your society, your building. If you find some, there are some jolly uncles, especially now it's the time in Bombay, right? Dandiya time. You'll find a lot of them, some of them are not able to dance, some of them are hesitant, apprehensive. These, people come, they're jolly, they give you a bunch of sweets, they pull you along, they make you laugh. So maybe, yeah, they have something to tell you, advise you on life skills. If you find somebody who is working from a STEM perspective, somebody is a good maths teacher, or somebody is good views, somebody is a scientist, or somebody is working for, say, any technology or manufacturing company, whatever, in your neighborhood or wherever, you can go and speak to them and have a discussion. It doesn't mean that a mentor is somebody whom you go to a mentor, you get inputs, and then the mentor's role basically again is to hear somebody out and hence you realize the potential. There are some mentors who perhaps typically like parents would want to reach down the neck and push down something, and say that this is right for you. Mark my word, I'm telling you, jolly well do this, right?
Okay.
That's not mentorship. So if the mentor is doing that, then you better the mentor is a
Reconsider.
coach, is a guide. Like, that's what the Afghanistan cricket team is saying. Since World Cup is on, I'm full of that. They say Ajay Jadeja, who's a dear star batsman, right? He's also a advisory, he's a mentor for the Afghan team. And he just told them simple things. Of course, it's very nice to say that go out there and enjoy yourself, right? Um, so it's something like that. You need to also like the mentor. Mentor cannot force things down your throat. If he's doing that, then you step away and perhaps look at somebody else. So mentorship is something where you go to this person and you also trust that person in many ways. And as I said, once you notice that it's not really working for you, there is no harm in saying thank you very much and I'll come back to you when I need you. You can still go and look for another mentor. Then once you're in a formal setup like a corporate entity today, they've made it very formal, right? Mentoring in organization. Yes, and you get mentored either for your life goals or your psychological condition you're at, or it could be for your personal life-related issues. I mean, marriage or relationships and things like that. And it could be career. It could be I love math, but I really don't know how to put my math to use. Can I go and work elsewhere? Can I go work in ISRO? Or can I go work in Google? How do I manage that? So that's again, a mentor would help you. He would say, go look up, right? He's not going to say that I'm going to recommend, just give me your resume and send it to Pichai. And I know Pichai very well. So that's not a mentor. Some mentors could have that influence. But that's again not what a mentor would do. Mentor would guide you. But mentoring, I think, plays a very, very big role, especially in the current juncture. And all the more from a STEM perspective, I think plays a big role. And also formal institutions like schools, colleges, corporate, they also need to train, have sessions to train mentors today. That they need to do. I mean, I think informal setting, which I mentioned, is fine outside of all this. But in formal setting, where a majority of us will end up, right, either in the institution or in a corporate world, in the corporate world, I think training needs to be given to them so that they sensitize these people on the youth of today. If you're talking about youngsters, their environment, the way they are, sensitize them and get them to also understand this, so that they're able to guide them, in a much better fashion. The whole thing is very soulful. The exercise is soulful. Yeah, I guess that's what I got on my.
Awesome. I think you highlighted so many different facets of mentorship, and I think really opened the horizon for students, because as opposed to looking to a straight and jacketed definition of a mentor, after hearing this podcast, I'm sure students might be thinking that, hey, I could actually find a mentor, or perhaps a silent mentor, right, even from an unexpected person or someone closer than they would have imagined. So thank you for touching upon that. And, thanks to people like you who are open and receptive, students can find good advice from people who have got so much experience. And, thanks for sharing that. We've really enjoyed this conversation and this discussion with you, and want to thank you once again for making time in your busy schedule for joining us on this podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. There's so much that you have shared. It's really hard to kind of summarize it in just a few bullet points, but it's been an amazing experience being on this podcast with you and, interacting with you. This session indeed got many insights and facets to the fore. And if you think about it, you contemplate it, you can action some of these points, or in fact, most of them, in your own personal life. I hope you've enjoyed this session. Follow us on YouTube to keep looking at content like this. And you can follow us on our podcast platforms like Google, Spotify, and Apple. Our handle is the Zista Podcast. Till we meet again, we'd say, stay curious.